This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Hola, mi gente. Turn up the Latin flavor with Café Bustelo coffee. Choose light, medium, dark, and dulce de leche roasts. Whatever your vibe, we got you covered. Café Bustelo está aquí.
Hey, travelers. In today's episode, we're thrilled to welcome Jacob Ward, a veteran journalist and thought leader focused on the complex relationship between technology, science, and human behavior. Jacob brings his extensive experience as a correspondent for major networks and his insights from his critically acclaimed book, The Loop, to our discussion. We'll dive into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence and its profound impact on our lives, explore how AI interacts with our human behavior, often tapping into our automatic decision-making processes driven by our quote-unquote lizard brain. We'll discuss the societal implications of AI, from potential job losses to ethical concerns, and how predictive policing and surveillance are reshaping our privacy landscape. As we look to the future, question the value of human labor in an AI-driven world and the potential mental health challenges that would arise from increased free time and a lack of purpose. We'll also touch on the concept of a technocracy, where a few hold significant power due to technological advancements, and consider the vastness of the universe with the Fermi Paradox and the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Join us as we navigate these cultural and economic shifts, emphasizing the importance of purpose and human satisfaction and the need for long-term thinking to address global challenges. Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole.
Imagine that this line represents time. Present 1985, future, past. Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985. Alternate to you, me, and Einstein. Reality for everyone else.
Welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy, and tonight we have a special guest, like we typically do. This one, though, is going to dissect a very interesting and current event-related topic, AI, and a lot of the aspects of AI that you're not thinking about. So today, we are thrilled to be joined by Jacob Ward, a veteran journalist, author, and thought leader focused on the complicated relationship between technology, science, and human behavior. For years, Jacob has served as a correspondent for major networks, including NBC News, where he reported on technology and its social implications for shows like Nightly News and The Today Show. His extensive career includes work with PBS, CNN, and Al Jazeera, and he previously held the position of editor-in-chief of Popular Science magazine. He is the host and co-writer of the landmark 4-hour PBS series Hacking Your Mind, which explores the science of decision-making and bias. Most importantly, we're here today to discuss his work on his critically acclaimed book, The Loop: How AI is Creating a World Without Choices and How to Fight Back. In The Loop, Jacob warns us about the unintended consequences of artificial intelligence on our free will and decision-making, offering a vital guide for navigating an increasingly automated world. Jacob, welcome. to the
You
infinite
guys,
rabbit
thank
hole.
you. I really appreciate you having me. This is very exciting.
Good. AI is your bread and butter right now. And I
God
know
help
that
me. Yes.
you've done a lot of work into psychological topics, right? Especially influence. How'd you get into all this? Let's start with the very beginning.
Sure. So I really appreciate you guys having me. So I've been a technology correspondent for a long time. And once upon a time, technology correspondents were sort of expected to be just kind of upbeat nerds who thought only about like which phone is better, right? And around 2013, when I started working first for Al Jazeera and then I did this PBS series, I was thinking more and more about technology as a kind of reflection of society. I had an early mentor who used to ask this question a lot of the time. He'd say, what is the technology trying to tell us about ourselves, right? We build stuff specifically to address something in ourselves, a vulnerability, a market opportunity, whatever it is. And so as I was starting to think about that, I had this opportunity to do this PBS series, Hacking Your Mind. And Hacking Your Mind was a 4-hour kind of crash course in about the last 50 years of behavioral science. And I got the opportunity to travel all over the world and interview all these people who study why we make choices the way we do. And what the basic takeaway of that series is, as is the basic takeaway of the last 50 years of all of this behavioral science, is that a huge amount of our decision-making, probably 85 to 90% at any given time, is totally automatic and based on very, very ancient instincts that we share with primates, like, choosing who to trust, what to eat, where to go. One big example of this is like if any of us, right, so I just spent the weekend driving my kid from volleyball game to volleyball game. If I'm assigned to drive my kid somewhere, it's as often as not, I might just automatically drive her by accident to school because that is the standard route you take every morning, right? And so I don't know how often you've been in the position, right? You guys have like, you show up at the school and you're like, oh wait, this is not where I'm supposed to take her. Oh my God, why have I done this? And the fact is, right, if you cast your mind back across that drive, like you've done an incredibly sophisticated mechanical task with no consciousness at all. You're on total autopilot, right? And that kind of autopilot is what all these behavioral scientists have shown is driving a huge amount of our choices in our day-to-day lives. So at the same time that I was learning about all of that, and the way in which those choices that we make are very predictable, that the mistakes we make are very predictable. I was also in my day job as a technology correspondent learning about these fly-by-night companies that were starting to use early machine learning and what was at the time called human reinforcement learning algorithms. This was early AI before ChatGPT became possible. And I thought, oh, this is a real problem. I'm not the kind of person who believes like I have to get my ideas into the world at all costs. But this was a moment where I was like, man, I don't see anybody else talking about the intersection of our vulnerabilities in terms of our brains and our behavior and this for-profit industry that's about to explode around the commercialization of AI. And I thought, you guys, that I was like 5 years early. I thought I was like, way out in front of this. And I had a few people read this book and be like, I don't know, this sounds like science fiction. This is pretty speculative. When we first published the book in 2020, the first version of it came out in at the very beginning of 2022. We didn't even put the word AI on it because we thought, oh, this is that'll alienate people. People will think this is a book for nerds and we want people to everyone to read this. And then 9 months later, ChatGPT comes out. And suddenly my thesis comes to life. And, I'm seeing my book that was supposed to predict something way out in advance and try to hopefully warn people against it in some way. I was encouraging people to get involved in policy and in lawsuits to try and slow this down. Suddenly it's just taken off. And I have to admit to you that like the last year and a half, I've kind of been in a little bit of a depressive slump, just kind of watching my thesis come to life. I've just been so bummed, honestly, that I've kind of withdrawn from the topic. I've just been like surfing and hanging out with my kids. I got laid off from NBC News last year. And so I've had some severance and some time to just like chill. And now I'm suddenly looking around. I'm going, you know what? I got to start talking about this again. I got to get re-engaged in this topic because it is happening so fast and it's poised to, I think, transform our world and not, I would argue, necessarily for the better unless we start making some big moves right now. And so that's why I'm joining you today, is trying to just sort of, I'm trying to have as many of these conversations as I can to say, listen, I don't think our brains are ready for this. That's fundamentally my thesis here.
So which phone is the best then?
Yeah, exactly.
All that stuff aside. But so what?
No, right, exactly. I can't tell you how often this is exactly what happens. Like, I'll get into a long conversation with somebody about like agency and human will and blah, 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 blah. And then they'll be like, and by the way, I'm having some email trouble. Can you help me with my email? That's really funny.
Well, if you're offering,
Yeah, I know, right?
So you're just like a superpowered IT, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know about all that, but anyway, can you help me with my Ring camera? Yeah,
no,
that's right.
We've recently dove deep quite a bit into AI and the troubles that it poses. Jeff, did you have a question, man? So I'm sorry, bud.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we've dove very heavily into it. I can guarantee you there's going to be topics that you may not have ever been asked to come out of our mouths today.
Let's go. I'm really excited to hear about it.
But I want to get everything else out of the way first before we get into, the kind of freestyle questions and everything. Jake, Jeff, do you guys have any questions before I dive into the ones that I have?
No, I hope you're ready, Jacob, because I'm the crazy one. So we're going to go deep.
Good.
He is.
I don't have any questions. I'm just interested in the topic. I'm so against AI. It's not even funny. And I just watched that artificial intelligence movie and Bicentennial Man yesterday. So I'm pretty well versed.
You're well poised for this conversation.
Yeah.
You are ready.
He did all of his studying. Look at him. It's the first time he's ever done studying. But yeah, well, I can't say I'm a huge fan of it, but I can see it benefiting us in limited usages. But I can definitely see the danger that's on the horizon. It's actually terrifying.
Well, here's the thing I'll just sort of say, maybe this will kind of set off some questions and some conversation. Like, I want to say, like, I am not opposed to it as a technology. It's almost always the case for me that like a technology in and of itself is not a problem. So in the case of AI, there are incredible uses, right? And as a guy who used to, run a magazine that was all about foundational science, like the incredible work that can be done with a pattern recognition system made possible by AI to turn, the revolution that made all of these LLMs and generative AI possible, right? Is this transformer model revolution that in 2017, 2018 made it possible to suddenly take huge amounts of undifferentiated data that you could never as a human being sit and sift through and find patterns in, funnel and get all these insights out of the bottom of it. If you think of all the things that scientists could pour into a funnel like that, right? Like every single photograph of a mole on someone's back that might or might not be cancerous, right? It's incredible at finding the patterns in predicting whose mole is going to turn cancerous and whose is not. You pour all of the, uncharted, unnamed, well, everything's named, but all of the stars in the sky, right? And you look for patterns in how they are moving or what's going on. Incredible discoveries can come out of that. I've talked to people who say, I know a guy who is working on a system. He exclusively tries to make AI systems for either not-for-profit sort of healthcare systems or for like state governments, and he makes no money as a result. And his thing is, he says, if you gave me everybody's birth certificate and everyone's home address, I could use AI to predict whose apartments need to be repainted in advance to cover up the lead paint and avoid lead poisoning in kids. You could wipe out lead poisoning in young kids. Like the ability to do incredible stuff like that is enormous and fantastic. But here's the problem, you guys. No one's making money stripping lead paint out of apartments. Nobody's making money pouring stars into funnels, right? That is not how we work in this country. Instead, you're in a world already where the leadership of these companies is saying, and now we're going to start using this to let you write erotica or make cartoon porn girlfriends for yourselves or whatever it is, right? It's how you make money off it that turns the technology into something bad. And in my case, I was just at a conference where I was watching presentation after presentation after presentation by people who work in what's called trust and safety. These are the sort of content moderators at social media platforms. And, they were just showing time and again, here, look, here's the photographs that AI can generate that absolutely no one will be able to spot as being fake. Here's the political messaging that turns out to be way more persuasive, not way more, but substantially more persuasive than messaging written by an actual human. And it doesn't even have to be written by somebody who writes the language, who even understands our language. So you just are seeing time and again that this stuff can be used for great stuff, but it can also be used for terrible stuff. And that terrible stuff tends to make us more money. And so that's my big problem.
That's my big pushback against it. It's not that AI can't be used for amazing things, but as a human species, we tend to do the worst things with what we have. And so, my big concern is, the whole deep fake technology. At some point, it's going to get so freaking difficult to tell what's a fabricated photo or a, like if I wanted to make a video of Jacob Ward drowning puppies in a river in order to ruin his life, I could do that in 10 seconds, put it out there, and then you're still going to have people out, even if it's able to be, shown that this is, baloney, it's not a real video, you're still going to have people out there years after the event, like every single, smear campaign that we see, that are going to believe that lie, or at least think in the back of their heads, maybe Jacob Ward is capable of drowning puppies in the river.
And let's say I am.
See if it ruins your life, why not?
Totally. And let's say I am a serial puppy drowner, right? And you catch me with a camera doing it. I'm then going to be in a position to say, that's not me. Look, you can't believe your lying eyes, because clearly we're in a world in which you can't trust video evidence anymore. This is my whole problem with the latest release from OpenAI, which allows people to make these 10-second videos that are all set for, that are perfect for social media. And they're already flooding my social media.
Yep.
I'm like, what is the purpose of this? What is it that we needed? What problem is this solving, right? Like, I think we are already not doing a great job with hanging on to what's true and what's not. And to totally, it just feels like it's almost as if the objective is to absolutely destabilize what we can trust and what we can't, so that there won't be any video evidence anymore. I mean, as a journalist who believes that there really is a way to prove a thing, one of the number one ways you prove a thing is you catch somebody on camera doing that thing. Sure. And if that's going to go out the window, I don't know, you guys, like, I'm not sure how we're going to agree on anything anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I see that that's like an issue, but I don't even see that as like a major issue personally, because I think that most of the society is kind of already at that point, even without AI. Like, nobody believes anything, right? Or, you have all these different like factions of ideas, and people can't agree on anything no matter what. Even if you do show them a real video of something, right? Like, it doesn't matter at this point. So my bigger concern is that the use of AI to sift through and like organize data on us, right? So I know that there's like we all know this, right? Like, we're all being tracked in every way, shape, and form, right? Thank you, Patriot Act. They're listening to and watching everything that's happening.
It's not happening.
Yeah, literally, right? But the problem is, like, they're going to take it up to the next level, I think, right? They're going to start using this to track like biometric data on all of us and these types of things. The control factor from whether it's a government or corporations, like, compiling all that data to feed you whatever, that's my bigger concern. The deep fake stuff is like, whatever, nobody believes shit anyway. So,
well, yeah, I'm not as nihilistic as you are about truth. And I like to believe, I'm trying to do this job still of sifting some truth out of the world, but I absolutely agree with you that trust is at an all-time low around that stuff. And so it's going to get even worse in that case. But I 100% agree with you that there is about to be a huge surveillance problem. And that problem, so I think that the government version of it, even if you put that aside, and I'm not arguing that that's somehow not something to worry about, but like, I think mostly about corporate actors these days, right? Because the pipeline of data from the incredible amount of information that we have volunteered to these companies in the last 10 years, and how that is about to get poured into these funnels that can find patterns in huge amounts of data, has created an incredible surveillance opportunity for these companies, right? So like, once upon a time, the big breakthrough, Mark Zuckerberg's big breakthrough, was this idea of revealed preferences, was the term of art in the social media world, which is, if I look at enough, if I look at you enough, Jeff, and I look at enough other people who are similar to your behavior, I can pick out of your collective behavior some revealed preferences, is what they call it. And that just means like the stuff where if I asked you in a poll, hey, are you into this kind of thing? You'd be like, no, I like this and this and this. But your unconscious mind, just can't help but look at X, Y, and Z when it's shown it. And it's the equivalent of like you drive past a car accident. Nobody would ever say in a survey, I like looking at car accidents, but it is clear from your behavior, the behavior that you exhibit on the social media platform, that you can't help but look at that, right? Mm-hmm. So you pour enough of that kind of revealed preference data into a social media platform, and they start to build engagement algorithms based on that. And that's how we got into the trouble we were in to start with. Now you're going to have this incredible ability to find meaning in that data and predictive forecasting that's going to let you say, this person's going to be way into this and way into this kind of thing. And it's not even going to be a question of funneling content that that someone has made to you. They're going to be able to just custom generate it, right? So for me, that's one huge problem. And then, like you say, the surveillance part of it. I mean, already there's technology out there that, can turn Wi-Fi signals into an ability to tell how many people are in the room and who's moving around. And, the incredible ability to watch our behavior on an ongoing basis is just going to be unprecedented. And the fact that it's all going to be done
Greetings from my bath, festive friends. The holidays are overwhelming, but I'm tackling this season with PayPal and making the most of my money. Getting 5% cash back when I pay in 4. No fees, no interest. I used it to get this portable spa with jets. Now the bubbles can cling to my sculpted but pruny body. Make the most of your money this holiday with PayPal. Save the offer in the app.
Ends 12/31. See paypal.com/promo terms. Points can be redeemed for cash and more. Pay in 4 subject to terms and approval. PayPal Inc. and MLS 910457.
Hey, welcome into Walgreens.
Hi there.
Hey.
All right, hon. I'll grab the gift wrap, cards, and, those stuffed animals the girls want.
Great. And I'll grab the string lights and some... How about I grab some cough drops?
This is not just a quick trip to Walgreens.
I'm fine, honey.
Well, just in case. You know what they say. 'Tis the season.
This is help staying healthy through the holidays. Walgreens.
You're a guy who just wants to look nice. The kind of nice where you might get a nice compliment on the niceness of your nice new outfit. Good thing Men's Warehouse has everything from polos to jeans and, yes, suits, plus a team to help you find the perfect fit to make sure you look nice. Nice. Love the way you look. Men's Warehouse.
For money almost makes me more worried than if it were done. For some reason, I'm more worried about it being done by corporations than I am by governments, but that's my own little thing.
I'm with that. I mean, for sure. I've been seeing me and my other co-hosts, we talk a lot about this thing that's been talked about a lot recently, which is kind of weird. Predictive policing. Have you heard this?
Yes, Predpol. I have a whole part of my book about that. Yes.
To me, that ties into all of this data collection and the surveillance state stuff. So it's literally going to be like Minority Report in my worst case, right? It's like they're going to just look at you and be like, hey, and we can predict based off of all these things that you're talking about, in 5 years, you're probably going to commit some kind of crime, and they'll be able to somehow work that into legislation, and it becomes a whole new world, literally.
And here's the thing that I get really worried about with that is that, one of the themes that I come back to a lot in the book is this concept of anthropomorphism, right? Which is the assuming that assuming that a system you don't understand is somehow really sophisticated. So just because you don't know how it works, you assume it's right. It's just a natural human tendency. This is one of those greatest hits of the last 50 years of behavioral science, was learning that one. In that case, you have these. So the thing about predictive policing, right, is that it delivers. This is true also of facial recognition systems, is they deliver a conclusion for an arresting officer that, it doesn't explain itself, doesn't say how it came to that conclusion, and saves that person a huge amount of work. And that is an irresistible combination. And so you wind up in these systems where, Predpol, Los Angeles used this for a long time until it was basically shown that had all kinds of biased results because it was leading, what it was essentially doing was kind of pre-indicting sections of the city based on past patterns. And as a result, a kid who just happens to live in that neighborhood is going to get grabbed by the police way more often. A perfectly innocent kid is much more likely to get accidentally grabbed by the police. And so eventually LA has now canceled their contract with these systems, but for years they were using it. And it was because everyone just kept saying it's a neutral system, it's a neutral arbiter, it's a, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is no one really at the front lines of operating that system knows what it's doing, how it's making its choices, and it's so convenient no one wants to resist it. So that's my other worry about this. I think we're not great at saying, one stat I bumped into in the book is I looked at this big study of the big healthcare records company is a company called Epic that it deals with your electronic medical records. And they created a predictive system that will help cardiologists make a priority list of their patients that day based on who's most likely to have a cardiac event that day. And the thing is, it works. It works pretty well. They're getting out in front of cardiac events early. These doctors are able to get in and make interventions early. In a lot of ways, you can't argue with it because it really works well. But here's where I get worried about it. I asked the makers of it, how often, your doctors must be irritated to be told what to do by a system like this. And they said, oh, no, they're thrilled. They're thrilled about it. They don't want to have to make that choice. They love being told what the order is. And I was like, oh, wow, has anyone, and how often do they ask how it makes decisions? And they were like, one guy asked once, and that's it. You know what I mean? And so there, but for the grace of God, right? You might have a system that works really well. You might not. You don't know. But people are only too happy to let the decision get handed off to these systems. This is what our wiring is about. We don't like to make choices. We like to be able to outsource our decision making. It's part of our human programming. And this is the ultimate outsourcing system. And yet we have no idea how it works or whether it's doing a good job.
Do you believe, that's basically a form of triage, isn't it?
Yeah, right. And again, you'd want that to work well, but I had a physician once explaining to me that one of the number one causes of malpractice lawsuits is a failure to look at a patient's back, and they'll then get bed sores and no one finds out, right? And the theory going about that is that the doctor is too buried in the chart. The doctor's already overworked, right? Has a patient load they can't handle. They're buried in the chart. They just look at the vitals that are on the chart and then they say, okay, I think it's this, let's do this, right? And they just don't have the time or the incentive to roll that person over and check out their whole body, right? It's that kind of thing. And I just worry at every level of really essential services in this country, you're going to have people saying, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. The AI tells me which suspect to arrest. The AI tells me who to hire for this job. The AI tells me which of these people I should date. Right? We're going to be using these systems in ways that I think are going to wipe out it's going to do to our ability to make good choices for ourselves what GPS has done to our sense of direction. I can't find my way around my own town anymore because of GPS.
Same.
Is this going to be, so I kind of go back and forth on this a lot. Obviously it freaks me out because we're living in this transitional period, right? We're going to witness it from before. I remember going outside and playing, right? And then now it's we're going into this new world situation. But is it going to be a thing where in a few generations in the future, maybe 50 to 100 years in the future, it's so well developed and advanced that it's actually incredibly beneficial, net positive for humanity, right? We live in some kind of, utopian paradise, an abundant civilization because of it?
That is certainly that's the vision being sold by the companies making it, right? It's the weirdest time to be a reporter because they say things that in the old days, and I'm old enough to remember some old days, would have been an absolute death sentence from a sort of public relations standpoint. So you'll have a guy like Sam Altman saying openly, huge numbers of jobs are going to be destroyed by our creation. And there's going to be big scams that are going to be really scary made possible by what we have built here. To my mind, but he says it and then in the same breath essentially says, but it's going to be worth it because down the line, there's going to be this incredible, upside for humanity. And I think I would just say, like, again, I'm down for, like, if it were up to me, I'd make it like, let's make it like a 5-year moratorium on commercial use and just give it to the scientists. I'd like to have just scientists use it for 5 years. And then we can start trying to make money off it, and let's see where that takes us first. Let's see if we can wipe out cancer, and then we'll start wiping out, real world girlfriends. Okay. Like, hold off, and in the case of, like, already there isn't even evidence yet that it has any kind of real productivity gains, right? Like, there was a big MIT study recently that showed that 95% of these companies that have adopted this stuff are reporting no productivity gains at all. Like, they can't figure out any improvement that's been made. So, it may be that that's the case, but you also have to think about the other kinds of things that the leadership of these companies predict. So one of the things that Sam Altman also has said, he said it in a January 2024 podcast with Alexis Ohanian. He said that he has a bet going with his tech CEO friends on their group chat as to when we'll see the first billion-dollar one-person company. And that's like a dream of theirs. Like, he says it like it's a positive thing. And so I think to myself, okay, well, wait a minute. So if the future is a handful of single person billionaire companies, what are the rest of us going to do for a living? And the dream they sort of offer is like, well, we're going to have a huge amount of free time. I don't know about you guys, but like, this is the United States. We don't like free time, and we don't like to give people free time. We certainly don't like to pay people for free time. Like, to my mind, there's no example in history of a time when we've made it possible to do less work and given people, a living for that. Like, that's not what we do.
Sure. I mean, I do also see, like, I pay a lot of attention to like macroeconomic stuff. So, it is also interesting to me that it seems like, and maybe this is just my conspiracy minded self thinking too much, but it does seem like we're going through some kind of monetary change, right?
Yes.
So it could be something where they kind of know they're foreseeing that this being an issue. So they're trying to flip, whether it be into like crypto rails or whatever the case might be. Because I know everybody, when AI started dropping, everybody was like, oh, we're going to lose all these jobs. We're going to have to talk about universal basic income. And obviously, like, that doesn't sound too good for anybody who's not just a lazy ass, right? So
right. I mean, already, right? You wouldn't want that. A lot of people don't want that. That's right.
Right. But if there is some kind of like monetary shift globally, and we stop looking at the financial system the way that we always have, maybe, right? Maybe there could be some way to make all that work together, but
maybe. I mean, now we're out past the power of history to be in any way predictive. Like, we don't have any examples of making that, of that being possible. And so, maybe down the road there will be some kind of, maybe it'll be the end of fiat currency and we'll all be somehow, I don't know, trading sugar syrup and not worrying about, against some digital currency, and we'll be, and we'll be fine. My problem is that, so there's a thing called the Jevons paradox that really haunts me. So back in the 19th century, a guy named William Jevons was a 19th century, he was a British economist, and he was trying to figure out why it was that the British Empire was running out of coal, which he was recognizing was a big problem, that England itself was going to run out of coal. And his thing that he identified was this weird paradox in which the technology at the time had actually gotten better at burning coal in a much more efficient way. There were these new steam engines that really had revolutionized the efficient use of coal, and yet they were using more coal than ever. And it's become a way of describing that dynamic in all these different fields. So it turns out, like, the more aqueducts you create to hang on to drinking water, the more we use up drinking water. Like, in example after example, the more efficient you are in using a thing, the more you consume it. And that's how I think it's going to be with our free time. I think the more it is possible to give someone free time, the more we're going to consume that free time and take it away from people, basically. I just don't believe that there's a world in which you're going to, make a sort of a free-flowing monetary system and a kind of, super generous social policy that somehow can work across borders, in which we're cool with people not having to work and AI doing all the jobs. Amazon has just announced, the New York Times just announced that like Amazon's about to wipe out 500,000 jobs. They're going to automate 500,000 jobs according to internal documents at Amazon, right? That's 500,000 jobs, out of like, I think they employ like 1.3 million people. Like that's a lot of jobs gone. Right? I don't think we're on a path toward hanging out and living a happy, relaxed life. It doesn't, in my experience, tend to be, the historical lessons doesn't tend to be the result of the moves of big companies.
You will own nothing and you will be happy, as they say.
Yeah, that's right.
So, well, even if we did have a completely automated world, we'd all end up being like those people on WALL-E, just in their car, super fat, staring at screens.
Jake, here's where we're at, right? This is how I think about it. So everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you mean the Terminator? You're worried about the Terminator?" And I'm like, "No, man, I'm not worried about the Terminator. I'm worried about Idiocracy."
Yeah,
that movie. I'm worried about WALL-E. Exactly. Yeah. It is a world. Now, WALL-E would be okay. Like, I mean, WALL-E is a little bit like what Jeff is suggesting could be possible, right? Like a world in which we're just like, our Slurpees are brought to us and we watch TV all day. Like, okay, all right. That's not the worst outcome, but I'm worried about, I'm worried about, something between like, what's the Elysium and Idiocracy, like a very powerful gap, a big gap between rich and poor, an extremely sharp pyramid at which only a handful of people get to live at the top and the rest of us are all at the bottom. And no one has the critical faculties to see, to figure out a solution to the problem.
Yeah, and then also the plants obviously craving Brondo because
exactly. That's right. Exactly.
So how worried are you about the concept of a technocracy?
Well, I am worried about that. I mean, I have a podcast called The Rip Current, and I was trying to figure out what it was I was going to call it when I launched The Rip Current. And at one point I was thinking about calling it NPC, because it's a term that you hear a lot in Silicon Valley at the top level from people. So NPC, right, for everybody, I'm sure who listens to you guys will know this term, but non-player character, right? It's the background characters in video games. It's like the extras in movies, right? And a friend of mine makes the joke that the people running the top companies in Silicon Valley are like your friend who watched Akira too many times and didn't quite get it, didn't quite understand that the lesson of that movie is not that superpowers are cool. It's that you shouldn't have superpowers and that it's bad for everybody else, and that's sort of how I feel about the leadership of a lot of these companies. Like is this idea, that they can joke about the idea of $1 billion single person company. That's the definition of a technocracy, right? That for me is an enormous red flag. And so I do worry about that. I mean, we had a whole campaign here in Northern California where I am based. There's a whole group of people who were trying to build their own tech city. They were trying to basically incorporate a whole part of, I can't remember which, I think it was Lake County, but this.
From Curtis 50 Cent Jackson.
Tommy back. Yeah, I am.
And the executive producers of Power.
There's levels to this game.
Comes the final season of Force.
We're gonna have to be careful about our next move. We get what we can now, and take the rest later. This is gonna be the battle of our life. It's go time.
This is a dangerous life that I choose to be in with you.
Force.
Never bet against me, because I'm always win.
Premieres November 7th, only on Starz and the Starz app.
I'm 32, juggling family, working full-time, and earning a bachelor's degree. At University of Phoenix, I earn career-relevant skills with every 5-week course. Skills I can use now, not just after graduation.
Earn skills in weeks, not years. Visit phoenix.edu.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you. Ooh. Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
You know how to make a great meal. And when it comes to the mess, Palmolive knows how to handle it. Palmolive Ultra removes up to 2.5 times the grease versus Dawn Non-Concentrated. Palmolive's most powerful formula instantly cuts grease, leaving you with sparkling clean dishes. Palmolive Ultra. Click or tap the banner to shop now or visit palmolive.com.
Rural part of California, they were going to basically just like take it over if they could. They lost, but now they've got a whole new plan to try and co-opt a existing town. You know, there's a real idea in tech circles that like the very smartest are the ones who count, and everybody else is just kind of a user and, you know, a consumer, and that bothers the hell out of me.
What do you mean by they were trying to take it over, like a 15-minute city or something like that?
They were trying to basically the concept. I'll do a little subtle Googling while I can here, but there was a whole idea that they were going to create a sort of tech utopian sort of city. There was also, the rumor mill had it for a while that, you know, at the beginning of the Trump administration, there were some conversations going on around, you know, trying to create some kind of regulationless city in which tech companies could experiment without any regulations at all. And in the big, beautiful bill that passed, at one point, there was a provision that was going to make it such that there would be no regulations allowed on AI at all for 10 years. And states included would not be allowed to pass any regulations on AI for 10 years, right? So there's this clear feeling on the part of the leaderships of these companies that just leave us alone, you know, let us figure it out. I once interviewed the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, and he basically said that. He's basically said, you know, policymakers can't be trusted to think about this stuff. They're not smart enough. Leave it to us. We will figure it out, and then we'll regulate it later. We'll figure out what the rules should be, because only we are sort of smart enough to do this. This is how I think they think about things.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see that, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier about like maybe at some point in the, you know, relatively distant future, it becomes like a utopian situation. But, you know, going back to what you were saying, you know, if this AI can figure out a way to cure cancer or slow down aging or whatever the case might be, it's not going to be cheap enough for us to use, right? Like those advances are going to be something that only these billionaires, at least I think, are going to be able to utilize that. So maybe that's why they have this mentality, because they kind of in the back of their mind, they're like, hey man, we're going to live the next 1,000 years. The schmucks aren't, you know, so if we could just...
The longevity stuff is a whole cultural facet of Silicon Valley, right? There's huge amounts of cultural interest here at that high level in sort of living forever. There's a huge amount of longevity talk.
Yeah.
You know, you've got people who are, you know, taking endless supplements and icing their skin and doing all kinds of stuff because they want to live forever.
Yeah, Ray Kurzweil,
Yeah, all that stuff is really there. And at the same time, I mean, I just think there's a feeling of intolerance. There's a guy who's very popular in tech circles here named Curtis Yarvin, and he has a very successful newsletter and is a very successful sort of public intellectual in Silicon Valley. And Curtis Yarvin's whole argument is we need a monarchy. We should have a techno monarchy. We shouldn't even be doing democracy anymore because it slows stuff down. And you know, lots of people in the tech community who are into that, you know, who are into that idea. People like Peter Thiel, people like Mark Andreessen, who's a big VC out here. You know, there's a real cabal of people who really believe the smartest people's ideas count, and everybody else is just kind of an NPC. And I think that is a real, which is why I want the utopian idea to happen. But this is the other thing, right? Like, let's say they make an AI-based cancer system. I mean, you know, what they call the capital expenditures on AI, the investment they actually have to make in the data centers, the amount of money being spent on that accounted for 1/3 of the total growth in GDP between last year and this year. A third of the difference between how much we spent last year as a nation, how much we spent this year as a nation, is just in the tubes and computers used to power this stuff. They're investing tens of billions of dollars, and that money has to get made back. So let's say they do figure out how to cure cancer. They're not going to give it away for free. They're going to need to make that money back. That's what's happening right now. And so to my mind, the commercialization of AI is going to create this incredible pressure to make money. And that's not going to lead them to utopian stuff, it seems to me.
You know, you guys ever seen that show Altered Carbon?
Yes. You know, it's so funny. Those are the books I relax with, weirdly enough. I love his writing.
I can't read, but the show was great. And This is what it makes me feel like. It makes me feel like that utopian AI driven world is going to be for those people who live above the clouds, right? It's like you were saying earlier, there's going to be a huge gap between like the rest of us and them. And, you know, they might live 1,000 years. They might be able to upload their consciousness to the stacks and clone themselves to continue, like some weird shit like that. But that's what I always think about when I really start thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, totally. I think there's a you know, I just think there's a like the problem with our society as we've got it built right now, right? The whole neoliberal project, the capitalist world that we live in is somebody's got to lose, right?
Yeah.
It's not a world in which everybody gets to win. Somebody wins and somebody loses. And the problem has always been, can you keep those things in at least a relative balance so that being at the bottom end of the society isn't like living in a medieval way. It is an okay life, right? We've had that in American history, but this is not the path to that. It doesn't seem to me.
So
at a certain point, we can also talk about happier topics, you guys. I know I'm such a bummer.
Oh,
on this
no.
topic. I ruin every party I go to.
Our listeners are sick. They love the depressing stuff.
You seem like a lot of fun for sure. No, our listeners are pretty gross. Like our highest like grossing shows or topics are ones where people are horribly killed in terrible accidents and things like that. They're missing forever and stuff like that.
Maybe
People
you're my tribe. Maybe I've been.
We love it.
So yeah, we've talked a lot, just kind of freestyling here, but I want to shine some light on the book. I'm a big book guy, so I always end up steering the conversation, especially with an author, into the topic of their book. So I want to talk about The Loop, right? So which you published, like you said, in January of 2022. You predicted the AI revolution we're seeing now, and we've talked about that pretty heavily already. Not necessarily a prediction, but AI in general. But the subtitle is How AI is Creating a World Without Choices. Now, could you break that down for the audience, and how exactly does a system designed to give us more options or a better experience ultimately limit our choices?
Well, I love this question. So as I said, I spent a huge amount of time looking at both the behavioral science world and then the technology world. So the behavioral science world accounts for about the first third of the book, where I'm trying to give people kind of a crash course in some of the big lessons of the last 50 years and more of behavioral science. And one of the big ones is we as a species. So a lot of this comes from a guy named Daniel Kahneman, who wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. That was a very famous book for a time. He won the Nobel Prize in economics. He was a psychologist who, beginning in the 1970s with a partner named Amos Tversky, created a whole bunch of experiments that showed that if you people hate to make choices and will take any excuse to outsource that decision-making if they can. And he came up with an idea of this thinking fast and slow idea. So there's a fast thinking brain and a slow thinking brain, a system 1 and a system 2. Mm-hmm. That system 1 fast thinking brain is this one that as I mentioned earlier, we have in common with primates. It goes way, 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 way back. It is an incredibly powerful and well-tested decision-making system. And it is the system that allows you to drive automatically to your kid's school without thinking about it.
Lizard brain.
Your lizard brain. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we say it. Exactly. That's your lizard brain. And, and we're embarrassed typically of our lizard brain. But the truth is our lizard brain got us where we are because you didn't need, using your lizard brain, you don't have to think things through. You don't have to, if a snake comes into the room and we're all sitting together, you don't go, oh, what kind of snake is that? You freak out, stand up. Everybody else in the room freaks out and stands up, and you're out the room and the tribe is saved, right? It's the automatic ways we make choices, not just individually, but as a group. We transmit. When I show you a mask of horror because the room's on fire, you don't need to see that the room's on fire. You just run, Yep. Cedric the Entertainer has a great line about, he's like, when I see black people run, you don't ask why, you just start running. He's like, you can't help but running, and that is exactly it. Like that's how our system works. So that's all the lizard brain stuff. Our slow thinking brain, our what's called our system 2, Daniel Kahneman called our system 2, that's the cautious, creative, rational, kind of better, more human decision-making system. And the idea is that like 100,000 years ago, that's the system that caused, back when everyone was living on the continent of what is now Africa, everyone, somebody stood up and said, what's over there? And that's that part of the brain that goes, oh, what else is beyond this campfire? I wonder what would happen if we didn't just think about our survival. Like, what happens after we die? And why did I have that weird dream? Those thoughts are a totally new decision-making system. And that system is super glitchy and, because it's untested. It's like a brand new piece of software in evolutionary terms. So what the estimate is that 90% of your choices are made by the lizard brain. And this little group of choices is made by your slow thinking brain. And my thesis in the book is, if you're a company that's created a pattern recognition system that can tell you what people are going to do in the future, can forecast their behavior and even maybe shape their behavior because you want to try and make money off of them, who are you going to try and sell to? Do you want to sell to the cautious, creative, rational part of the brain that thinks things through, right, and makes good choices? Or do you want to sell to the one that can't help but look at the cleavage picture, right, that can't help but drive to his kid's school by accident, right? The automatic brain that, was like where my alcoholism came from, that they would much rather sell booze to that guy than they would to the guy that I am today who said, you know what, I got to actually stop drinking and I'm going to quit drinking. So to my mind, a system like this absolutely could create huge amounts of choice. We would love that. But I think when you overlay the need to make money off these systems onto it, they're not going to, why would they try and make us more like these people? They're going to want to make us, more like our rational selves. Why wouldn't they want to make us more and more instinctive? Because the instincts are so easy to predict.
Do you think that they've been working towards that already with just the way that the algorithms work, TikTok brain and all that, and
absolutely
shortening of attention spans?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I want to say, I describe this, I'm not judgy about this because I am the worst person I know around this stuff. I am super manipulatable around this stuff. I'm the one who scrolls TikTok and eventually the woman comes on with a TikTok branded video that says, you should go to bed now. You've had enough, because when the bartender says you've had enough, when the crack dealer says you've had enough, that you are addicted to crack and he knows you're coming back tomorrow, so I very much write this stuff and think about this stuff, not from a perspective of hey, everybody, you got to be smarter. I write it from the place of I am not able to resist any of this because it's so powerful, and I just think we have to, what I want everyone to do, and what I like is that young people are better at this. Jeff, you said TikTok brain, the fact that we're naming that in ourselves, right? Jake, you said lizard brain, that we're naming that in ourselves. I just love that we're entering a world. And this is where my hope for the future comes from, is young people talk very openly about oh, brain rot. Oh, I got into brain rot. They're conscious of how their brains fall for this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think the more that we can articulate that, the more we're going to get to a place where not only are we going to be able to say, I got to make better choices for myself, which is part of the solution, but I don't think the main part. I think then you're going to get to a world where you're going to start being able to sue on the basis of, you're going to be able to sue companies for taking advantage of your instincts in a way that you would never choose consciously. That, to my mind, is where the path out of this is probably going to come from.
I got some crazy allegory of the cave vibes from the beginning of that explanation. Plato's what was it? The Republic.
Okay, tell me about that. You're better read than I am. I don't know my Republic.
It's just a small portion of his work called The Republic. Prisoners are locked inside a cave, and they've been in there for so long that they're only allowed to face one wall and see the flames from the fire that's stoking the wall. They don't know how the fire gets fed or anything. They just know that it does. One prisoner frees himself somehow, breaks out of the cave, learns that there's an entire world outside of the cave, comes in, tells them about it, and nobody believes him because their whole life, basically, since birth, they were prisoners inside of this cave, and all they know is the shadows cast on the walls caused by the fire. So when you were talking about Jake made the reference to lizard brain, and you had talked about there's a small part of your brain where you stand up and you say, well, what's over there? And a lot of people, some people, right, I'm not going to use figures, but there's a lot of people, and trying to walk a thin line here. A lot of people would be like, don't be an idiot. Don't look over there. Because there's nothing there, right? Our whole world is right here in this cave, and our everything we know is being cast in shadows on the wall.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana. You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kan du norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify, spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
But then you have those people that are willing to look outside and say, no, there's a whole other world out here. Then eventually the people all make it outside, and then everyone's so depressed. And that's a great segue into something else that I wanted to talk to you about. Sorry, I'm kind of just jumping topics here really quick, but it was a perfect segue. So you had made a point earlier about how we're going to have a ton of free time, or that's kind of the route.
That's what they promise anyway. That's what they say that we will have.
Do you have any fears of, I don't even know if there's a term for it, but the depression that people get when they don't have something to put their efforts towards? You see it a lot with recent retarees, or like Jake and I, we were in the Navy together, and I mean, I went through it, right? I got forced medically retired out of the Navy, and I went through a massive depressive cycle.
Oh, dude, I had a total ego death, and now I just spend every second that I have doing something.
Right? and you know,
constantly busy.
My wife and I wouldn't say we argue about it, but we talk about it all the time. You know, she's like, you always have to be doing something, and it's like, you have no idea. Like, if my mind's not being exercised by a task, whether it's at work or the podcast or hanging out with my kids or something, I go crazy, or I either fall asleep. Right? These guys give me crap all the time because I don't watch movies. I fall asleep to them, and I didn't understand 90% of the references that were made today already. But so that's why I like books. I get my entertainment from books, because I can physically do something.
I love that. Right.
But are you worried?
Oh man, yes. I love this. I think you're touching on something so important. So purpose. You know, there's a whole world of research going on right now around purpose and how important that is to human satisfaction, because a bunch of these researchers are recognizing that in the future, if people are going to suddenly not be working, how will they function, right? I mean, this is a whole thing. It's not just about the money it brings in. It's the identity and the value you feel. People really like purpose. And I really worry about a world in which, we have established the idea that the value of a person has to do with their production, their productivity. How much money do they generate? How much value do they generate? is measured in monetary terms right now. And if we're about to enter a world in which the AI takes care of all of that, well, then what is the value of that person? There was a think tank that I went to once that was, all they were trying to think about was, how do we come up with a new way of describing the value of people beyond the money they generate? And to my mind, so I think it's one of the big problems with what you're describing. And it's one of the big problems, I think, with people who say, oh, we're not going to have to work as hard in the future, or we're not going to have to work at all in the future. That feels like a real, high school freshman's idea of what, a sort of perfect world is supposed to be. I think we're going to need work and purpose. I think that's a huge part of what has been satisfying about humanity. I mean, we were talking about this primitive brain, lizard brain, and our higher functions. The higher functions, one of the examples I always give around higher functions and why I'm so proud to be a modern human, is all the stuff we've built. The highways and the cathedrals and the bridges, it's incredible. And the pride people take in having done that stuff. So I just think we're absolutely going to need that in the future. And if we don't have it, because we think somehow people are going to be happier if they don't have to do any work, I think misunderstands how economics work, as you know, Jeff, and misunderstands how people find happiness in life.
I'm surprised that Jeff hasn't brought up that it seems to me that it's the promises of a more relaxed society, but people are so forgetful that just, 4 or 5 years ago, everyone was locked inside their homes. They couldn't go to work. They couldn't do anything of enjoyment, which you do get a tremendous amount of satisfaction from work in general. Whether that's working with your hands or actually doing a job, right? Whatever it might be. But those sorts of things decreased and our mental health issues spiked through the roof, right?
Totally.
And so maybe, the whole grandiose idea of less time at work and more time for yourself and all this sort of stuff, but with the knowledge that it's going to lead to insane mental health crises. And why not, right? Look,
right.
Who would want that? Well, I don't know, but why, I guess we're going to find out. But
this is why it bothers me so much how casually you have business leaders right now saying, oh, we're just going to not need people. The damage that will do to society if they really lay off people the way they seem to want to. Whereas at the same time, like I was mentioning earlier, this guy who says he could do away with lead poisoning in kids if you gave him an AI system. He also has a program, I think it's for the state of New Hampshire. I can't remember, but basically he's got a system that takes new arrivals in the state of New Hampshire, people who have just arrived there, whether they are immigrants or moved there from another state, and once they register, get a driver's license or whatever, this system pushes to them, hey, would you like to be a bus driver? Would you like to be, a sanitation worker? What about this? Because there are all these jobs that the state of New Hampshire needs filled that they can't fill. Snowplow drivers and all this stuff, right? To my mind, stop talking about getting rid of paralegals and entry-level bookkeeping and all that stuff. Don't do that. Don't wipe that out. We're going to need that job. Instead, use AI to find people work. Use AI to pair people with the services they need. That's what we're going to need much more than I feel like the idea that we need to be more efficient feels out of whack. I think we've gotten to a place where the top people in America are making enough money. I think they should take a little break on the money making, and let's get some people some help. Let's use the assistants for that instead.
There's definitely a concern for a lot of these jobs. I feel like, going away with automation and AI and stuff, but I still, I'm a blue collar worker, right? I go out and I do tasks that I don't see. I think about this all the time, right? I don't see how an Elon robot can do half of the jobs that I've done in my life, because there's certain things that you just couldn't program into, to do some of these tasks. Now, when you're talking about, a lot of jobs, sure, right? Artists, even musicians, that's going away with some of the new AI, writers, customer service, a lot of these things, retail, delivery services, taxis, all that could go away. Waste management, that could all be automated. But when you start talking about, service industry, like blue collar service industry jobs, I don't see how like a robot's going to be able to do 90% of those jobs. So it could be a situation where a lot of these people do lose work, but there's so much that's going to be needed in order to like maintain the infrastructure of society that just people just don't want to do, right? Because it's not air conditioned, it's not comfortable, it's hard work. So sure, you might have like this problem, but again, kind of looking out into the future a little bit, it may become a thing where it's like we don't actually have more free time. We just have more people doing things to upkeep the infrastructure that robots can't do.
Yeah, I hope that is true. That there can somehow be a move toward, let's say, enough people in the trades that you could have, that it could sort of balance out. But one problem I have heard a great deal, I was just talking to somebody the other day who's doing a bunch of research right now around the thesis that AI could conceivably do to women who never go to college what foreign offshoring did to men who never went to college back in the 80s and early 90s. Because for a huge number of women who don't have a college education, there have been a whole set of knowledge jobs, bookkeeping, clerical, admin, right, that can lead to a really good, reliable paycheck for a long time and can lead to, a real career that then winds up even leading to a really stable retirement. And these are the jobs that these companies are talking about wiping out completely. And so that's something I really worry about. I think you're right that like there could be a push toward the trades. I was just talking to a guy the other day who was really lamenting that his daughter doesn't want to become a lawyer or an engineer and she wants to be an artist. And I was saying to him, like, I don't know, man, have you seen what's going on with lawyers and engineers? Like they're getting fired left and right because the entry-level versions of those jobs are going away.
Yep.
But a truly like disciplined creative person, that could actually be a valuable skill in a whole new way. But I'm always collecting, like, because I worry about my own ability to make money in the future. Like I really don't know, and I'm too old to go become a journeyman apprentice electrician. So I can't, then there's a lot of people in my position who only have like 15 years left in their working lives who aren't going to be able to make a transition like that. So there's a real trouble there. But I'm always keeping my eyes open for like what is a gig that is AI proof? I met a guy the other day at the airport and we were sitting waiting for a flight together. And I was like, what do you do? And he was like, I own a chain of barbershops. And I was like, yes, that's fantastic. Tell me about that. So I agree with you, Jeff. I think there will be a lot of jobs that won't get replaced, at least not in the short term, because it just doesn't make enough money. Like it wouldn't be a cost savings to automate that work. But if you look at the original filings of Uber, the company, the original stock filings all say from the very beginning, we're going to automate this work as quick as we possibly can, right? Driving Uber is going to be absolutely a robot's job in a few years because they can do it more cheaply that way. And so as long as they can do it more cheaply by automating it, they will. And I think it, and this is why I think one of the ways, the subtitle of my book is how it's creating a world without choices and how to fight back. We're seeing around the world, people are fighting back. So in India, they have outlawed self-driving cars because a huge number of people in India make their job as drivers. They have said it's illegal to have robots do that because they know that it'll just put so many people out of work. And, we may have to make that kind of choice here in the United States, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Get in the trades, people.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna catch no Elon robot doing underwater welding, not for a long time,
That's funny. I bet if you had Elon on, he'd be like, "Ooh, I totally want to make a robot that does that."
Good luck, man.
It's funny too because I'm sitting here thinking about it for my job because I do avionics work on airplanes.
Yeah.
Certainly, there wouldn't be a robot that would, take my job. However, they could use AI to figure out, why are half the lights not working on this, in this cabin of this aircraft and completely eliminate the need to pay someone who specializes in avionics.
Who, has experience.
Right.
That's exactly right.
So,
I mean, that's right.
Right.
We've seen,
so,
yeah.
They threw a ludicrous number at me because they're like, yeah, well, you got, 10 years of experience working on avionics, and that's a specialty role. But if you could get a computer program to just find what's probably the solution to fix this, then you could have any monkey with a wrench,
Totally.
figure it out and do it, right? So
and out of the little drawer comes the exact piece machined that you need, and just put it here, turn it 3 times. Okay, take lunch. Yeah, that's right.
So,
that's right.
Oh, we'll see. Maybe
So
I
again,
should become a journeyman electrician.
Yeah, right. The value of people has got to start getting calculated in a form other than just how much money they can bring in. We're going to need to start defending purpose and human satisfaction, I think, in some new way. And we just don't have a lot of history of that,
Yeah.
Well, ready for a wild question?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Do you I don't know if you've dove into this at all, but you think that there's any connection between AI and the recent massive increase of UFO stuff that's going on right now, whether it be through mainstream media, through independent outlets like us, or anything and everything?
That's really interesting. I don't know if I believe, so I'll just say I don't know anything about it fundamentally. Like I didn't know about the uptick in reports. That's interesting. I think that there is we're in a new information ecosystem where every single person is kind of a self-appointed watchdog for weird stuff. And that is, I think, in a lot of cases good. There are a lot of good things that have come out of that. And there are also places in which that creates just an incredible ecosystem for dangerous conspiracy theorists that get us into trouble as a society, I think. So I wonder if I had to guess, I would guess that it is, it might be a function of just how easy it is to report evidence of a thing and have that thing analyzed and amplified by lots and lots and lots of people. It's, one of the things that we've seen a lot of in the last, like what we've seen time and again is that when you can measure a thing more effectively, the rates of that thing.
With stays under $250 a night, Vrbo makes it easy to celebrate sweater weather. Book a cabin with leaf views or a home with a fire pit for nights with friends. With stays under $250 a night, find a home for your exact needs. Book now at Vrbo.com.
This episode is brought to you by Buffalo Trace Distillery. Powerful yet smooth. Contained but never tame. Proudly going their own way, but never going alone. This is the spirit inside Buffalo Trace Bourbon. Made at Buffalo Trace Distillery, the world's most award-winning distillery. Buffalo Trace is always perfectly untamed. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, Franklin County, Kentucky. 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume. Learn more at buffalotracedistillery.com. Please drink responsibly.
Silent nights. Total drag. But incredible holiday deals are happening now on Bose.com. Bose products deliver full, rich sound with the power to transform boring into anything but. Find something for everyone on your list and big savings right now on Bose.com. Holidays deserve music. Music deserves Bose. Shop Bose.com/Spotify.
Hola, Sol de Janeiro here. This holiday season, the world is your stage with new limited edition gift sets packed with craveable body care and irresistible perfume mists that bring out the brightest version of you and everyone on your list. Our award-winning, visibly firming Brazilian Boom Boom Cream and cult favorite fragrances bring a little mist, a little mingle, and endless delight to the senses. Holiday's hottest gifts are waiting for you at soldejaneiro.com.
Ford Blue Cruise hands-free highway driving takes the work out of being behind the wheel, allowing you to relax and reconnect, while also staying in control. Enjoy the drive in Blue Cruise-enabled vehicles like the F-150, Explorer, and Mustang Mach-E. Available feature on equipped vehicles. Terms apply. Does not replace safe driving. See Ford.com/Blue Cruise for more details.
Go up because we can measure it more. And I just wonder if it's just because there are so many people with cameras filming the night sky that you're either seeing, maybe they're really seeing something, or at the very least, the incidence of people who think they have seen something has gotten a lot higher.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm speculating here, but that would be my guess.
We can get in some real brain rot topics here. We can tell you. No, I ask because one of the primary theories going around right now is that UFOs is AI incarnate, like a physical form of AI creating either itself to move around inside of the physical space, which also delves into, time travel and other real fringe topics, right? I mean, we dive into all of it here. We really do. So I was just wondering if you had heard anything like that or had a point on
I haven't. The only perspective I'll offer on UFOs and extraterrestrial life that has always stuck with me is a thing that years and years and years ago, team of academics who study space were explaining to me about the sheer size of space and also how old the universe is.
Yeah.
And as a result, so there's this thing, the Fermi Paradox, which you probably know about, which is right. And Enrico Fermi, right, one of the fathers of the atomic bomb, he just would idly chat with his lunch group, and one of the things he would always ask is, "Where is everybody? Where is alien life elsewhere in the world, in the universe? Because clearly there's so much potential for it to be there. Why isn't it out there?" Well, the best answer anyone has come up with that makes mathematical sense to answer the Fermi Paradox is, it's not that there isn't extraterrestrial life out there. It's that the universe is so old and the amount of time in the universe is so vast that the chance that out of all of these stars, 2 civilizations would exist at the same time is very mathematically small. So the idea that in all this darkness, the single match flame that is our civilization, right? That lights and is extinguished instantly in the time scale of the universe, the chance that 2 of those would be lit together at the same time such that they overlap and actually see one another is incredibly tiny. So for me, that's something I've hung on to in my career for a long time. When people talk about extraterrestrial life, is I think to myself, it makes absolute sense to me that it's out there. It just may have already happened or hasn't happened yet, such that we would ever encounter it.
Yeah, you've actually touched on multiple answers to the Fermi Paradox there. I always like to plug books again. If anybody's interested in a really good read for answers to the Fermi Paradox, there is a book by Stephen Webb. It's called "If the Universe is Teeming with Aliens, Where is Everybody? 75 Solutions to the Fermi Paradox."
Oh, cool.
And it's probably one of my most read books. I constantly go to it and use it for reference.
Cool.
And then, of course, just to tie it all in, the 76th solution was actually a recent thing, which is the one that's brought up in the Third Body Problem series by author Sixon Yu, where he talks about the dark forest theory. That's another one that's not covered in Stephen Webb's book. That's also very interesting, which you didn't necessarily touch on that one. You more or less, there's a answer called the island, right? Where we're just alone on an island, and all we have is basically, if you look at the Earth, all we have is the materials here on the Earth. We don't have the ways of manufacturing what we need to be able to bend space-time and travel vast distances within one lifespan. Right. So where we are is where we're going to be at. Distances are too far. Time is too limited. Unless you can go through and somehow manipulate one of Einstein's theories of relativity via, bending of space or black hole manipulation, you're not going to really do much. And even that is theoretical at best.
Yeah. Right. I'll just leave you with this idea that I started the book with, which is the idea of the generation ship, which is this concept that gets kicked around at NASA, and there's a couple of science fiction books that have taken this idea on, and it's the whole idea that so the nearest habitable planet to us, the one that they think we actually could walk around on and possibly breathe the atmosphere, is called Proxima Centauri b.
Yep.
And it's only like 4.3 light years away. It's right down the block in terms of being nearby. The trouble is that 4.3 light years away, at the current speeds we can travel in space, ends up being something like, it's more than 100,000 years. It's like 200,000 years. So the concept is that you'd have to have people on that ship live and die and have babies and continue to create a culture that just lives right on that ship for that whole period of time. It's like 2,000 human generations. And so I've used this as like my example of like where we're at on this planet is like that amount of time is essentially the entire time that we've been that species that walked off of the continent of Africa and became the modern selves with our better brains. The possibility of actually living all that time on a single ship is crazy. And instead, it makes me think we are on that ship. Like, this is our ship. This is the one we get. We're on it already. And we got to figure out how to do a better job of thinking in advance, thinking in generations. You guys were asking about like what's going to happen in a few generations, right? Like we need to think that way. We're not thinking that way right now. We're thinking in financial quarters, and we need to be thinking a lot longer than that, it seems to me.
Proxima Centauri is very interesting. Just for food for thought for people who are listening, Proxima Centauri was once considered a dual star system, and then they ended up finding a third traveling star that actually orbited the two that are orbiting themselves. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat said that, and then when the ship gets there, it's just a bunch of inbred.
Yeah, totally. I saw that. So I have a like half-written screenplay in which that's exactly the concept. Did you guys ever watch In the Name of the Rose? It was an early Sean Connery movie. It's a great movie about it's a murder mystery set in a medieval monastery, and everybody is super inbred. So they're all just like, and you would just imagine at the very end of that trip, as they're approaching the planet, they're all just going to be like so messed up, so gross.
They're going to look like Sloth from the Goonies.
Totally. And they're all like naked because all the clothing is melted away, like that's right, exactly. It'd be a messy party.
Well, was there anything that you came on to try and specifically talk about today, so we're not wasting all of the time on fantastical stuff about UFOs and space travel?
We've done it, you guys. I love hearing your perspectives on, the macroeconomic trends here and on, whether these systems really can replace jobs as we have them right now. No, I think we've done a really good job. I would say, if you don't mind me promoting my own stuff, the ripcurrent.com is where people can sign up for my podcast if they'd like to listen. I do a weekly interview with somebody who, the Rip Current is named for like the invisible forces that I think are kind of working on us right now. And that's stuff like, that's like that's all these weird political trends moving us here and there. It's economic forces. So each week is a different sort of expert in something along those lines. So I think it's very similar to what you guys are thinking about here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
No, it's awesome. This was a blast, really.
Yeah, good episode for sure. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time. Hope to do it again.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'm going to go ahead and sign us off. If you could hang out for, 2 or 3 more minutes afterwards, that way I can just make sure all of your audio and video are sent over. Usually it's really quick, but every once in a while that just takes a few extra minutes.
No, I've been there. I'll absolutely stick around.
All right. Jacob, is there anything else that you would like to plug or anything other than the Rip Current?
Again, theripcurrent.com. Come check us out if you can. For some reason, my biggest following is on TikTok. I have a huge TikTok following, which is, for an old guy, it makes no sense to me at all, but I really enjoy that community. And so come check me out there. That's where I'm most active. I'm trying to grow my YouTube, but I'm not doing a smart job of that. So I gotta shift toward that if I can. But yeah, ripcurrent.com. That's what I mostly care about.
Do have one question from the chat that popped up. The More asked what got him into conspiracies. How long ago?
So when you're the editor-in-chief of Popular Science magazine, you really can't avoid them. You'll have people, it's very interesting. You'll have people full of, Popular Science, the readership is, it tends to be a lot of military people. We got a lot of Navy. I think a lot of people, you have people serving on a submarine, right, who are at sea for a long time, and that's kind of one of their only forms of entertainment is magazines, so they'd have us with them. And so just a really interesting group of people, a lot of people would come to us with a lot of various interesting questions. And so I think that got me going on it. And then you combine that with then all this reporting I've done around kind of, why certain ideas really stick in the brain, and that brings you into contact with a lot of folks who think about conspiracy theories as well.
Cool.
You put a smart guy in front of this information, it's just natural. You just become a conspiracy theorist. And
Maybe so. Maybe so. That's right.
Well, good. Well, I'll make sure to tag you in all the TikTok clips that we get from this episode, and
appreciate it.
We'll spread the word. I can't wait for your book to come in. I'm sure I'll have a ton of questions afterwards. So if you ever want to come back on the show, you're more than welcome, man. Absolutely.
Sounds great. Yeah, just call me up. I'm around. Thank you.
All right,
guys.
Jake, you got anything for Jake?
No, but this whole thing has been tripping me out a little bit. Jake.
Between this and your LASIK eyes, you must be having a trippy evening.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. I'm ready for bed too. It's my bedtime. I got to go work on planes tomorrow.
Good.
But no, it was a cool episode. Definitely not what I expected. Yeah, I would love to have you back on. That was interesting to hear your insight.
Sick. Thanks, guys.
You know,
and
another Californian is cool too. I'm from Fresno.
Oh, see, nice, awesome.
And then next time we'll make sure we have some even wilder questions, something to make you real think, right?
Yeah, you went easy on me tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that has been another episode of the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. Until next time, travelers, we'll see you in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye, everybody. Good night.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.